on to step number 2. We've gone ahead and laid out all of our parts. Everything is listed here as it should be, as well as 2 cups, and then also your 2 diff housings here. It is saying here 1 front, 1 rear, and I'm really not seeing a difference or any notations on what makes one different from the other. So very, very interesting to see. They both use the same part number, I'm assuming, for the diff housing, because there's 2 of them with the same part number. So I don't know why that doesn't say times 2, but we might find out in just a little bit as we start building. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is to remove the tabs and whatnot from our parts. I always like to make sure that they're nice and clean, with no flashing or tree spars left on there. Just makes for a nice clean build as you go along. Some pretty hard plastic here. Gotta be careful we don't shave our fingers off. We'll make those nice and clean before we get going. I have been known to bleed during my videos, so you might get lucky and get to see that. Alright, the first part we're going to start on here is building the shafts. We're going to take this little unit right here, and you can see that on one end of it is a place for a C-clip, and there is a hole here and a hole in the bottom. So the C-clip goes on this portion here, and we're going to note that as we go along. Grab one of our little pins, and we're going to put it down into the center hole, or the hole most towards the center. God, we got yucky stuff all over here. Just like so. We're going to grab the gear, and on the back it's got little slots. We're going to make sure that those line up, just like that. And then we're going to put a C-clip right in there to hold that on. These little C-clips are not my favorite part of building. I'm not going to say it's not fun, because of course we're building an RC, and that is fun. But let's just say it's one of my least favorite parts of doing it. So we're going to drop that down in there. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. Sometimes working for the camera is difficult. I like to call it porn position, because it's not comfortable to let people see what you're doing sometimes. It's a little unnatural. There we go. Got that on there. See, it's on nice. Make sure it's on. There we go. So we've got that done. And that represents this part here. Now we're going to grab one of our diff cases, and we're going to insert 2 bearings in here. Again, we're using FastEddieBearings.com bearings. Comes a full set, or you can buy them individually. Go ahead and drop that in. It's a little bit loose, so watch out. Hold your finger on there so it doesn't pop out. We're going to do the same on the inside. We're going to drop the bearing down in there and press it in. Went in very easily. You can see it down in there. So we have 2 bearings. We're now going to slide this unit from the inside. So again, I'm making sure I don't drop those bearings on the floor. And put that shaft through, just like so. You can see that the shaft sticks out with the hole on the other end, and it turns smoothly. Now we're going to put the cup on the end. The holes here on the cup are going to line up with the hole in the shaft. And then we're going to insert one of these shoulder bolts in there. You can see that it has threads on one part. We're going to want to use Loctite. Where did my Loctite go? Here we go. Going to want to use Loctite on that, and you're going to want to be fairly liberal with it. Try to get it on only the screw part and not on the shaft. Otherwise that little puppy might get locked in there pretty good. A little better than you want. So I like to just put a little on my bench and hold it by the shaft and rotate it, and that puts Loctite on the threads and not on the rest. And take a look at the shaft, and we're going to see that one side is threaded, or not the shaft, but the cup. One side of the cup is threaded, and the other side is not. So we're going to put that in, tighten it down, and snug it up. There we go. There is quite a bit of play in there. A little bit more than I would like to see. If you're being real technical with your build, you may want to add a little shim in there, and that will help the diff be a little bit tighter. That's how that works. We're going to go ahead and build a second one, and we'll be right back. I'm going to amend this part right here. I just didn't like how loose that was, so I got a shim, and it's a, see if you can focus in here, it's just something I had in my box. It's a 5x9 shim. You want, and it's by 0.4. You want to make sure whenever you use a shim that it doesn't, ooh, that's a bad shape, but you want to make sure that it doesn't touch the outer part of your bearing. It has to be smaller than the OD if you put a shim in, and that is a 0.3 thickness in millimeters, and it just makes me feel a whole lot better when that's a little bit tighter. It was just a little bit too loose for my liking. Go ahead and put this back on. Come on. I'm feeling spastic at the moment. Put that back on. And as you can see now, there's just a teeny tiny little play up and down instead of a whole bunch like there was before. It just makes for a stronger build. So if you would like to do that, you can add a shim in there. I always feel like we're accomplishing something when we have to open another bag. So according to the directions for step number 3, open bag B. And at this point, the only thing we're going to use are 6 screws. We've got 4 of the longer beveled screws and 2 of the shorter beveled screws that are in one of the bags. The rest of it looks like we're going to use in another step. As I'm reading the directions here, I was looking at the back diff half, or this portion of the diff, and it's stating to use 80091-2. However, there's 2 units in there, and they are both dash 1s, as you can see. So I'm hoping that that's a misprint. We're just going to go ahead and build it as is, and if we're wrong later, we will most definitely find out. So we're going to go ahead and take the spar off this piece and get ready to install it. As we're looking, again, it says front and rear. We're only building one, so I'll assume that the rear builds later on separately. So we're just going to separate the parts out here and just use what we need. As we're looking, we need to know which way the diff actually mounts in here, because it can go either way. So up here it says note direction, and it shows that the unit is pointing backwards, and as you can see, the gear is going to be on that side. So that's how we're going to go ahead and put this together, and we're just going to drop that little puppy right down in there. As you can see, it fits and snaps in. Make sure everything turns properly. It's all good. Now we're going to put some grease on the gear, and they did supply us with grease. Here it is. It's just in this little white tube. We're just going to put an amount on there. You don't have to go crazy, but you definitely do want it to cover the gears. So we're just going to turn it and just put some in the teeth, like so. Again, we're working for the camera here in porn position, so it's a little difficult. Yeah. So just put a good slathering on there. It's not rocket science. Go ahead and spin it around to distribute it if you'd like. Okay. Now we're going to take this portion here and we're going to mount it up on here. Should snap right into place. There's two holes here that we're going to put our screws into. We're going to use the shorter of the beveled screws. That is going into plastic, so we're just going to screw it in. It's a self-tapping screw. I'm just going to screw it in until it touches. You're going to feel resistance right when it touches, and just give it a little extra, but not much. Screw those two little puppies in. You don't want to fracture that bevel. If you start fracturing or displacing the beveled area here, you know you're going too tight. So just go in till you feel it touch. Give it just a little more turn. That's all you need on there. At this point, let's go ahead and make sure that everything's smooth and not binding. If you have any binding going on, you're going to want to take a look and revisit that and find out why it's binding. Okay, we're going to go ahead and put on the shock support now, which is this unit here. You're going to notice that the front, or I don't know which is front or rear, but it's smooth on one side. Then it has some reliefs on the other side. The side with the reliefs are going to go against the unit like so. Should slide right on there. Looking at the relief sections here. Okay, actually I was wrong. The relief sections go towards the back. You see? Got to learn to read directions properly. And then from there, we have this unit right here, which looks to be universal. No, it has a bevel on it. You can see that this portion towards the top is thicker, and looking at the directions, the thicker portion goes towards the top, like so. Now we're going to use the 4 longer beveled screws. Goes all the way through the whole thing. And that's going to hold it together. Again, we're plastic into plastic, or metal into plastic, so don't over tighten it. Just screw it down till it touches. And then just a little bit more. This unit is going to go on the front. At least according to the directions, that's where it's going to go. And I looked in the directions. We're going to build the back one a little bit later. So we're almost done with step number 3. There is an optional aluminum unit that you can buy. You can see right here. If that's something that you want, you may want to order it up. We're just going to go ahead and use the plastic ones for now. And that's all there is to step number 3. Just going to make sure that all those are snug down, not over tightened. There we go. That's how it's looking so far. Everything's smooth. No binding. On to step 4.